Well, Donald Trump totally whacked out tweet this morning. Elizabeth Warren asking him in a follow-up tweet if he's slut-shaming Kirsten Gillibrand. It's just bizarre, going after her, saying that she comes to his office and would do anything for a campaign contribution. Roy Moore's one of his friends last night gave a great speech about how when they were in Vietnam together, they went to a brothel filled with underage girls. The punchline was Roy Moore was horrified and he left. I want to buy a bridge. And, well, who knows? Zephyr Teashouch has some interesting thoughts on the whole Al Franken thing. There's just a lot in the news today. Of course, the election in Alabama, and at the top of the election in Alabama, we had Greg Palast on yesterday, and he was talking about how a judge in Alabama had just said that the voting machines in Alabama, the scanners that scan the ballots that you fill in, you fill in little circles, that the images that are kept on those by those voting machines need to be kept because that's what's used for an audit. They don't actually audit the paper; they audit the images, oddly enough. And then the Alabama Supreme Court said, "No, you don't have to keep those images." That was later yesterday afternoon, after we got off the air. On the line with us to discuss this is Mimi Kennedy, the actor, activist, writer, supporter of Governor Don Siegelman, the board chair of Progressive Democrats of America, PDAmerica.org, star of the hit series Mom on CBS, although she's not here representing CBS. PDAmerica.org is the website. You can tweet her at Mimi Kennedy LA or at PD America. Mimi, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tom. I'm so glad to be here, but I'm not happy about the reason. I thought I was going to be telling you about a wonderful election integrity win by nonpartisan election integrity activist John Brakey in Alabama, getting a judge to agree that preserving the ballot images of all the paper ballots that are scanned is an important aspect of public documents preservation for all elections. It's a federal and a state law. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to tell you instead that once John got that ruling in the morning with 4 Alabama voter plaintiffs, a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, and a preacher, the state attorney general went right to court and told the judge, no, on behalf of the Secretary of State. And the argument, in part, that the Secretary of State had was, I can't tell my county officials what to do. That's not my responsibility. You asked the wrong defendant for remedy. The Secretary of State, you have to go to every single county. I can't do anything. And the second was, and you can't prove there's any harm done to anybody, any of these plaintiffs, by not keeping these ballot images. Can't prove any imminent harm. That's what they're always saying about election integrity. Well, you can't prove there's fraction magic in the program. You can't prove anybody's stealing an election, and forget about you.
Right. Now, isn't this Secretary of State also the guy who wrote or promoted, or in fact aggressively promoted, the draconian voter ID laws and voter suppression laws in the state of Alabama, and came right out and said he was doing it to break the black power, the hold of black power? I'm doing this from recollection. I've got the story around here someplace. In the state?
Well, I missed that part of racist Alabama officialdom. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I was doing at the time, but I will say that John Merrill oversees the Alabama that has that ID law, and that once they required IDs, they closed the DMV offices in majority African-American counties so that it was damn near impossible to get the voter ID that you needed. That was before the 2016 election. Yeah.
Here's what he had to say. This is from Pima Levy writing from Mother Jones. Okay. And Pima writes, this time last year, Alabama's chief elections official landed in the national spotlight for delivering a screed against non-voters that many people interpreted as an attack on African Americans in the state who have long faced barriers to voting. Quote, that now we're quoting John Merrill, Quote, if you're too sorry or lazy to get up off your rear and go register to vote or to register electronically and then go to vote, then you don't deserve that privilege, Republican John Merrill said in an interview with documentary filmmaker Brian Jenkins. Levy wrote, quote, Jenkins had asked why he opposed automatically registering Alabamians when they reach voting age, and his response sizzled with anger toward people who, quote, think they deserve the right because they've turned 18. He made a pledge, quote, as long as I'm Secretary of State of Alabama, you're going to have to show some initiative to become a registered voter in this state. And this, of course, justifying his voter suppression laws. Pretty amazing stuff.
Well, you know, makes me want to cry. And I guess I can only add something very, well, this morning on National Public Radio, I listened a little bit because I knew they would be covering Alabama, and they had a wonderfully energetic Vietnam vet, African-American, who runs barbershop, and he said he had voted for Donald Trump because Donald Trump says what he means. He just speaks outright, you know?
Yeah.
There is a lot of wish for authenticity, and then for the white voters they talk to, it's all about abortion. I gave a speech in Alabama last May begging people of Bible-oriented consciousness or morality to get off that dime and think about who's being hurt by, for instance, the new tax law, by, for instance, eradicating people's health care. This is the balance of power, and this is the way Republicans have been playing. And at this point, John Brakey doesn't even say Republican, Democrat. He's just about how do the voters say what they want, authentic talking and some health care. Those two things are separate right now because you want authentic talking, then you have to go for this narrative, which is completely, I think, completely false, that the Republicans are telling it like it is. And then if you want that, then you can't have health care. You can't have any help for the babies you have. You must submit to sexual predation because it's on the down low, and nobody would believe this nice, upstanding man did such a thing. It's got me right here. It's stuck in my craw. But what you just read, that a man who's the Secretary of State could say that kind of racist, the antebellum stuff is just, well, I'm in California, and I was born in Rochester, New York, so I haven't lived in the South, and I guess it still breaks my heart that that's public talk from white officials in the South. Yeah. I mean, I know it is. I'm not naive, but when you hear it like that, it's
well, there's no shortage of Republicans around the country who, in unguarded moments or moments of braggadocio, have just come right out and said that they're doing these voter suppression things, not because they think that people are voting illegally. Everybody knows that's a joke. Nobody's actually doing that. But rather because it makes it harder for poor people to vote, particularly people of color, older people to vote if their driver's licenses have expired. Now they've changed the rules so that you have to have an active license. So they're going to start aging. You're going to be aging out of your ability to vote, which I think is unconstitutional. And college students who don't yet have driver's licenses, or in some cases they just make it very, very difficult for them to determine where their residency is so they can vote. So anyhow,
that's what we see that here in L.A. and by race, your life is at stake most nights.
Yeah, we gotta fix this. Mimi Kennedy, the board chair of Progressive Democrats of America, pdamerica.org. PD America, very active in all of these things and the net neutrality thing that's going on today. Mimi, thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome, Tom.
Great talking with you. Keep up the great work. We'll be back.